I'm quickly going to do some introductions of the folks here on the panel, and then I'm going to talk about what we're doing at Pennsylvania College of Technology. I'll introduce myself when we get to that point. And these panelists are going to talk specifically about their activities around advanced manufacturing apprenticeships. Gary Laird became the president at Hanover Area Chamber of Commerce in 2002. In February 2017, the Hanover Chamber of Commerce was approved by the Pennsylvania Department of Labor and Industry as the first chamber apprenticeship model in the Commonwealth. Gary was also selected to participate in the U.S. Chamber of Commerce's Business Fellowship Program focused on workforce development best practices. Patricia Moran was Director of Training for the Ford Motor Company at its former Edison, New Jersey assembly plant and managed the training for more than 1,600 employees. In 2013, Patricia became Assistant Commissioner of Workforce Development in New Jersey. In 2018, she joined the New Jersey Manufacturing Extension Partnership, where she is the Director of Apprenticeship Programs. Patricia serves as adjunct faculty member at several county colleges and at William Patterson University. As president of M. Davis & Sons, Inc. in Wilmington, Delaware, John Gooden is actively engaged with the development of new markets and is committed to workforce development in regional, vocational, and technical high schools, Delaware Technical and Community College, Delaware Skills Center, and serves on multiple advisory committees for trades programs. He serves on the Education Commission of the states and has helped launch multiple apprenticeship programs in Delaware. He serves as vice chair for Delaware Manufacturing Association. My name is Shannon Munro. I'm the vice president for workforce development at Pennsylvania College of Technology. I started there back in 2012. Prior to that, I worked as the workforce development board director at the Central Pennsylvania Workforce Development Corporation. And I'm responsible for the division in the college that works on training for companies. So I'm going to talk a bit about what Penn College does in a moment, but there is a side of Penn College that focuses heavily on providing training to incumbent workers, and we offer incumbent worker training at that office. Pennsylvania College of Technology has about 5,000 full-time equivalent students on campus, and we have about a 97% placement rate right now for our graduates. When I listened to the speakers earlier today, a lot of what they were talking about was applied technology education, and we've been doing that since the early 1900s at our college. Our students spend a lot of time in labs on location, so everything that they do is applied technology education. I can appreciate the individual that said that they hired an engineer that didn't really know how to be an engineer. That is not the case at Pennsylvania College of Technology. Okay. Our students actually learn on equipment that is often donated by manufacturers or healthcare providers. So they learn on equipment that they will be using when they eventually find employment opportunities when they graduate. We have career fairs twice a year on our campus. They are a huge draw. We regularly have more than 5,000 job openings available at those career fairs for our graduates. With a low unemployment rate and a massive number of retirements, I expect that that will be the case for years to come for the types of occupations that we train people to work in. You can see on the slide on the right-hand side, those are the top areas for degree programs at Pennsylvania College of Technology. We offer both associate's and bachelor's degrees, and about 40% of our students are in associate's degrees, about 60% in bachelor's degrees. And in many of those areas, we do offer both an associate and a bachelor's degree. In welding, for example, we just went through a pretty substantial welding expansion on our campus, and we'll be able to accommodate an additional 60 students because of that expansion. Because of these tight relationships that we've built with companies who not only hire our graduates, they sponsor scholarships, they make equipment and material donations, again, so that our students can learn on the most up-to-date technology. They also serve in advisory capacities on our campus, so we're continuously listening for feedback from companies so that our programs align with what the needs are for industry. And we are continuously looking at ways to improve our offerings and make sure that we are producing students and graduates that can immediately hit the ground running when they leave our campus. It's a natural fit that we would also do workforce development programs on our campus because of what we do on the academic side. We have been operating apprenticeship programs since approximately 2017. When we began our first program in mechatronics, which is a 4-year apprenticeship program that is registered in Pennsylvania. So fast forward 3 years into developing the apprenticeship programs on site, and we were awarded an $8 million grant that you may have heard mentioned earlier today. This is the H1B funding that Bob Lerman spoke about earlier. And we partnered with the New Jersey Institute of Technology on this grant application, which is a nice partner for us because geographically they're close to us. We're located in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, so kind of the center of the state in Pennsylvania. We're in a very rural area. They're in an urban area. It's a nice project to be able to do some comparative work when it's complete to see the differences in how we were able to operate these programs. The grant itself is focused on advanced manufacturing, and that number is correct. We are planning to serve 3,200 individuals in both those locations over a 4-year period. This grant is called Midas, Modular Industrial. Oh, Chris Ray, who is listening, is going to kill me for not getting this. I know he's watching at home. I will get back to that. The difference between this program and traditional apprenticeship programs is that we are looking at being able to deconstruct an apprenticeship program. And this is an example on the top line of a mechatronics apprenticeship program that we're offering. So you can see the 3 components. Those are 3 individual areas of training, individual year components, and each one of those result in an industry recognized credential at the end of it. So a traditional model would be that somebody would start at the beginning, go through all 4 years of that. But what this grant allows us to do is to break this up into chunks. So for example, we've worked with lots of companies in the past who have required some type of modification to the way that an apprenticeship program operates. They might not need industrial electricity, for example, or mechanical components, but they might need the other 3 or 2 of these. So this allows companies to mix and match the types of programs that that make the most sense for them as a company. The other additional benefit of this is, so those are traditional people coming through a traditional apprenticeship program along the top line. Along the bottom line are optional apprenticeship models, and this is just a couple of examples of those. I heard a lot of conversations earlier today about the need for frontline supervisor training, for example. So how do you manage a group of people going through an apprenticeship program maybe for the first time? So this is a component that is an add-on to allow those companies to invest in other areas of training in addition and in support of regular apprenticeship programs. The benefit of this is that it allows us to flexibly respond to what customers, who are the employers that we're working with, are regularly telling us they need. We also heard pretty dramatic testimony this morning about how rapidly jobs are changing. So this allows for that flexibility that customers, employers are really looking for. within the framework of a traditional apprenticeship program. So the other part that I'll mention is that we do register all of the apprenticeship programs through this grant. It is not a requirement, but we feel strongly that it is an addition that is clearly important. It's been important for the people that have gone through the apprenticeship programs. So we are in the process of registering all of the programs. In Pennsylvania, we are focused on mechatronics, which you can see here along the top line, also industrial manufacturing technician, plastics process technician for both extrusion and injection, and a 3-year CNC program. The plastics program is also 3 years. In New Jersey, at the New Jersey Institute of Technology, they're focused on biomanufacturing, specifically in cell therapy, and light metals technician. So those are 2 brand new areas. All of the occupations that I mentioned for Pennsylvania are already registered and operating, with the exception of plastics process technician, which is registered, but we are in the process of starting up a program right now, and injection will be our first one. The other thing I'll mention is that this grant, the biggest benefit of it is that it allows us to provide some financial assistance to companies to get in the game of apprenticeship. So we often hear that this is a pretty lofty investment for companies to make, and this lowers the financial point of entry for those particular companies. One of the hallmarks of this program, which we have found to be absolutely necessary, since in many cases we are operating these programs as the sponsor, and there are multiple companies sending people to the same class. We do have models where a single company from multiple locations across the United States is having people go through the registered apprenticeship program, but also that we have multiple companies coming in. We've tried to be as the least disruptive to a traditional work setting that they have in place right now. One of the ways that we've been able to do that is by engaging a fully interactive instructor-led online component. It is live training, it is not canned training, so it's not, we know that from history that just telling somebody to go do something on their own time often doesn't result in them doing it. So we have really invested in scheduling events for people to go through those trainings. It's kind of like the Brady Bunch screen where you see everybody on the screen together. We've invested in that infrastructure at our college to be able to deliver it. It also helps us as we go through this startup phase in working with New Jersey Institute of Technology, that we may be able to offer some programs in Pennsylvania to New Jersey clients while that becomes operational. So the on-the-job training piece, or the hands-on, the applied piece, is happening at their home employer, but the related technical instruction is happening with New Jersey Institute of Technology and at Pennsylvania College of Technology. We also have instances where we may have people in the room that are from a closer location to us. They can come into the room and be live in that room while the instructor is broadcasting out to multiple locations across Pennsylvania and the United States. So what makes this model different? I've heard a lot of the language this morning around, and early this afternoon, around intermediaries and how that whole process works, and the different names people call those things across the country. So essentially, the model that we have defined, we are an intermediary. We have provided assistance to companies. We serve in the capacity of going out and talking to companies about how this might benefit them. And as I heard from a speaker this morning, it definitely requires a team of very skilled individuals who have a very broad and intense knowledge about apprenticeship to be able to have the conversations that are necessary to get more companies interested in this process. And again, it certainly helps us that we have grant funding available to support this conversation. But if the goal is to increase the number of apprentices across Pennsylvania and the United States, these are the kinds of investments we need to make in people going out and having these conversations, because it is definitely a critical component in getting an apprenticeship program operational. We have spent, I told you we were founded in the early 1900s. We have a long history. I was just talking to Gary about companies that we work with in his area, not just as a place where our graduates eventually find employment, but then they come back to us for additional training, because as we know, education is no longer a linear piece where you just do for 4 years and you're done. They recognize the need to come back to us for continuous education opportunities throughout their career. So we've established these relationships with companies and built trust over many, many years. And we also operated programs around training in these areas for years before we started doing apprenticeship programs. So we have a long history of providing the customized training that fits really nicely into the role of being the related technical instruction provider, and also the sponsor and the mediary, and trying to help these companies figure out the best way to navigate programs for themselves. So we have a very strong team of individuals in place that have years of experience working with companies to deliver this type of training. Most of our experience in the past had been with short-term training opportunities, so this is really looking at how to expand on the things that we've done in the past. But as I mentioned, the one huge benefit of the Midas grant is that it allows us to also build in those shorter-term pieces that companies might also find beneficial. We essentially do the heavy lifting for companies. We handle the registrations, we serve as the sponsor, we help facilitate, in many cases, especially in rural areas. It might be one company has one person in one place, another company has two in another. Alone, they wouldn't be able to do this type of training, but together we can figure out ways to build on that and pull together a class that would benefit a cohort of companies. We've also found it necessary to offer mentor workshops to the people that are in those roles within companies of documenting competencies for their employees. We track attendance. We do not adhere to a traditional academic mindset. So I did hear that earlier today also. Why is higher ed not paying attention to this? We've been paying attention to it for a very long time. Fortunately, all of our degrees are aligned with current positions that are open across the United States. But in addition to that, we recognize the need to enter this arena around workforce training and creating a pathway for people that go through those types of training into credit. So every single program we design has a pathway to credit for the individuals that are in it. We have not had a lot of experience with people coming to us and searching out that pathway, but we definitely know that it's of interest and that companies are using it as a marketing tool when they have such tight labor forces right now. The other benefit of the program that we deliver is that there is a competency-based place out. We do pre-test and post-test for every level within these apprenticeship programs. So the pre-test allows us to see where the deficiencies are in knowledge and where somebody needs to spend extra time in the classroom and where they do not. So that is one thing that companies have really looked upon us as a leader, because we really do try to minimize the disruption to the companies, and there is no sense in somebody sitting in a class that they don't need because they already have the competency. So that is also a big piece of what we have built out over the years. I mentioned that a priority for us is to register our programs, and all of them are currently registered in Pennsylvania. We have a really great relationship with the Apprenticeship Training Office in Pennsylvania. We ask them questions constantly. We know Eric's phone number by heart. There's a lot of interaction that goes back and forth with us so that we can take that burden off of an employer to try to navigate that system on their own. So that is a substantially abbreviated version of Midas and what we're doing with this particular grant. So I'm going to turn it over to Gary to talk about what he's doing at the Chamber of Commerce, and I'm going to get your slides going for you.
Wonderful, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Gary Laird. I'm president of the Hanover Area Chamber of Commerce in Hanover, Pennsylvania, located in South Central PA. We're a small community. We still have a very robust manufacturing base. And so we have been working on workforce initiatives for a number of years, connecting businesses with schools and students to businesses for internships, shadowing opportunities. We've participated in manufacturing day. So we've done a lot of awareness work for many years around career pathways in manufacturing. In 2016, that kind of led us to the next stage of opportunity for us when we were approached by three of our longstanding members as it relates to some issues that they were dealing with looking for welders, machinists, and industrial mechanics. So we are small, again, a lot of smaller employers. Most of our employers, are around in manufacturing around 50 to 75 employees. We talked a lot earlier today about resources and management of resources and accessibility, and a lot of these businesses just don't have the time or the personnel to be able to start their own apprenticeship program. So that led us to a conversation with Eric Ramsey, who we've heard a lot about today, from the Office of Apprenticeship, and he suggested a group model. So we became a group-sponsored model in February of 2017. We've learned a lot over the past few years. We started out with 3 employers. We're now at 9. See if I can get current here on the slides. So we currently have 9 employers. They're all not active with apprentices, but they're at the table listening. Some of them need to understand what it takes to position themselves to have an apprenticeship program, understand how the model works, and also understand the resources that need to be committed to it. So we have multiple industries, occupations. Right now we have welding, machining, and mechatronics. One of the nice things about a group model is that you can add industries and you can add occupations. It's a fairly simple process to complete and add an occupation through the PA Office of Apprenticeship. We also work with 3 school districts, which is really key to this whole thing, because we actually had 2 pre-apprenticeship programs offered through 2 of our local school districts before we ever had our apprenticeship program up and running. The pre-apprenticeships are really an opportunity to begin drilling down in the junior high level and having conversations with students as it relates to employment opportunities and career opportunities in manufacturing. Our guidance counselors, our career counselors, are really focused on connecting with the students, understanding what their skills are, understanding what their interests are, and then trying to put them in a position where they can do a lot of learning even before they get to high school as it relates to some of these careers. So we have juniors in high school who can begin a pre-apprenticeship opportunity in machining. They graduate with a NIMS credential. If they're in welding, they graduate with an AWS credential, and they go to work for one of our 9 employers as a paid apprentice. So we're small. Again, we have 7 apprentices currently in our program. We have about 14 pre-apprentices in our 2 school districts. It's my understanding we have 20 plus that are in that sophomore class that are going to move in their junior year. So the awareness continues to grow at a much younger level within the high school experience. So we're excited about the opportunity that we're going to continue to build capacity over time. The foundation of this whole model is really based on, we heard a lot today about collaboration. Our role really, we're not training experts. Before 2017, I really didn't even understand what an apprenticeship program was all about. but it was based on the need of our community, our employers within our community, that really kind of drove us to the point of making the decision to invest in this. So our employers in the model do what's most important to them, and that's oversee the training, they oversee the recruiting, they work very closely with the school districts. So the ideal scenario for us is that we have instructors that are teaching machining in high school. Well, they're working with one of the 9 business partners to understand what the needs of their business are, so that when the students complete a course in machining, they can go to the shop floor then and be able to apply or understand what they've learned in the classroom. So there's a really close linkage and strong relationship between our business partners and the instructors within the schools, which really makes it meaningful, because a lot of these students are coming out of high school with a really good understanding about what's needed in these businesses, what their culture is all about. And so it's an opportunity for the students to vet the employer. It's an opportunity for the employer to vet the students as well. So the schools really are to engage the students. That's kind of their key role, get the students that are interested lined up with the pre-apprenticeship opportunities. And again, work very closely and stay aligned with the employers. Our role as a chamber organization is really to kind of help out wherever it's needed. We do a lot of the administrative work on behalf of the employers that they may not be able to do. We do all the tracking, reporting. We do a lot of grant writing. We also facilitate the meetings, because many times in certain situations, these employers are competitors, so they need someone that can really kind of serve as that neutral facilitator, and that's a big part of our role. And again, we meet with our educators, the school districts, we work with the employers separately, and then we bring them all together to kind of share what's happening across all fronts, both education and business. An interesting development that came out of our efforts is now we have even multiple school districts that are working on planned efforts on how they can best serve the needs of the community without duplicating and investing in common equipment. This school knows that they have this piece of CNC equipment, so this school doesn't have to purchase it. So they're actually, it's kind of interesting, because they're doing some very preliminary planning now on how they can work together to effectively deliver these pre-apprenticeship opportunities to our employers. So it's been a pretty interesting dynamic. It's been a lot of work. It's been very painful at times, I have to say, but at the same time, it's been very rewarding to see some of the results that we've achieved with our apprentices, and to have them stand up in front of a group within our community, much like our apprentices did here earlier today, and talk about their experiences. So currently, our pre-apprenticeship program is fully developed. Our apprenticeship program it's developed now, but we're still tweaking it. We rely on Manufacturers Association to deliver training, Harrisburg Area Community College. So we've partnered with a lot of different organizations to try and make this as all-inclusive as we can and representative of all the resources within our community. So our future is really looking at, we're a small chamber of commerce. I just hired an employee in December to help me, which has been tremendous. We have the opportunity to expand into other occupations, other industries. March, we're going to start having conversations with 7 employers in healthcare on how we can begin to scratch the surface on the healthcare front. So we look forward to those conversations. I think a key part of what we want to do as we continue to move forward too is step back and measure our success. I think there's there's not an employer out there that doesn't want to understand what the return on investment is. And our model is really a self-funded model. We've been the recipient of grants, but all the employers that participate understand that they're going to have to financially support the model if we want to continue to grow it and move it forward. So that's a little bit about what we do with our group apprenticeship model. and I'll be happy to turn it over to Patricia.
Okay, thank you. I think there should be just one slide, the very first slide. I'm going to skip around, though. Oh, I'm going to go back one. Hi, my name is Peggy Marin. I'm the Director of Apprenticeships for NJMEP. I don't know how many people in here know what MEP is, but we are the New Jersey Manufacturing Extension Program. Our goal is to move manufacturing forward. There's an MEP in every state. I think in Pennsylvania it's called the DVIRC. There's numerous DVIRC model places out there in Pennsylvania. It's a big state. And our whole mission is to help manufacturers. In New Jersey, we have 11,500 manufacturers in the state, which everyone is always usually shocked to know that we have that many manufacturers. The average size of our manufacturer is 34 employees. That's the average size. So they're not some real big, but some real small. And you do find, I spend my life in my car traveling to these manufacturers. You do find that you have the highly automated manufacturers, as well as you have what I call the rough and tumble shops. So we get the real taste of manufacturing in New Jersey. So it is a pleasure to be here. So I'm going to go through these slides a little bit differently here. We are a workforce intermediary. We have a joint apprenticeship training committee, which I haven't heard much about today. It essentially, we have a board. NJMEP is run by a board, and a subset of that board is our training committee. So essentially, there are subject matter experts. So you see on here that we provide industry and/or workforce-specific expertise. We do a lot of curriculum development. We support employers in manufacturing. That is our job, and this is what workforce intermediaries do. We do serve as a sponsor. We do all the paperwork. New Jersey is an OA state. We're an Office of Apprenticeship state. We are not run by the state. We are run by the feds. Okay? And we aggregate demand for apprentices. So the apprenticeship classes that I run, that I'm going to talk about our occupations in a minute, I do them all what I call consortium style, in groups of apprentices together. And we are, in some cases, the provider of related technical instruction and supported services. So the apprenticeship occupation that I'm going to talk about today, that is probably our most popular one, is one that's called Industrial Manufacturing Production Technician. We have about 5 different occupations, but that particular one is very, they like it, manufacturers like it, because it is what I call the liberal arts of manufacturing, okay? It has a piece of safety, it has a piece of quality, it has production and process, and it has maintenance. And we did add a robust industrial math and blueprint reading piece in there because our goal was to connect it also to college credit. So you hear numerous credentials. For those of you who know MSSC, Manufacturing Skills Standards Council, we do have 5 credentials in there of that, and we also have 3 other credentials, plus they get the national credential, plus they get 8 college credits at any of the community colleges in New Jersey. So our particular program is robust. The first time I ran it, in fact, the first 2 times I ran it at our own location, right in Cedar Knolls, New Jersey, right in Morristown, mainly because I wanted to get the wrinkles out of it. And they were wrinkles because we're all in a learning mode here. Even though I have been born and raised in apprenticeship, there were still some things I had to learn. And then after that, after running 2, we knew we had to partner. We had to partner. It was the plan from the beginning to partner. And we do view the CTE schools, the high schools, the community colleges, as well as some adult schools as great partners because they're able to help us forge those pathways into different career pathways for people. They're help us forward. And plus, they were getting 8 college credits. It'd be great to get them used to that college environment and onto other college things. So I'm just going to forward here a little bit. So these are, here it says our cohort locations. So you see our first two we did were at Cedar Knolls, right in Morristown, New Jersey. Then we did one at Essex. Essex is by Newark Airport, for those of you who aren't real familiar with New Jersey. So we do a lot of work with Essex Technical School. So we have a group of apprentices there. We have another one at the County College of Morris. We have one at Middlesex County College. We're just opening up one, Rowan College at Burlington County, and in what is now called Rowan College of South Jersey. It says Cumberland Gloucester there, but that is South Jersey. Now, how we work those partnership agreements with the community colleges and the adult schools and the technical schools is they're doing a piece. We're paying them. We're under a grant that you're going to hear about in a minute called GAINS, a state grant. We're paying these community colleges to do a piece of that related technical instruction. However, MEP has their what I call their special sauce. They like doing the blueprint reading and the lean manufacturing and the special pieces in there. So we partner with those schools. So they're earning some money. They're getting exposed to the employers, which I think is really important for the community colleges to get that employer engagement in there, and also to start saturating into the apprenticeship model. So they do a piece of that also. So this particular program, as mentioned here, is a 1.5 years long, an industrial manufacturing production technician, of which we in our office call it IMPT for obvious reasons. It's a 1.5 years long. The in-class instructions are designed to be carried over to the day-to-day work activities, and we've had some great examples in that what they learn in their related technical instruction is complemented by their OJT. They go back, they learn new things, they practice it every day. They get nationally recognized credentials from MSSC. They also get OSHA 10, they get CPR, they get first aid, they get 8 college credits in associates in manufacturing sciences, and obviously there's structured OJT. One of the advantages of, let me just click through this. So you see what we have. It is one of the things about apprenticeship, and I think everybody in this room would agree with me, it is a high-touch business. Definitely is a high-touch business. You just don't hit a button and run an apprenticeship program. It just doesn't work that way. You are very involved. We also do candidate sourcing, because one of the things you hear about in manufacturing all the time is that we can't find people to fill the skill gap. Baby boomers are retiring, leaving. There's nobody, and there's no succession planning, right? Nobody's done that. So they need people to fill that skill gap. So you hear that all the time. So we test every month, 9th grade reading, 9th grade math. We give them the Bennett mechanical test. Those that passed get fed to those employers that want those candidates. We do what I call cohort development. You just saw that on the map. We administer everything. We do all the work for USDOL as well as because we're under a state grant for our own New Jersey Department of Labor. We develop the partnerships, we market all the time, and we are planning for future growth, exactly what Gary just mentioned. We're always saying what else is needed out there. So one of the things that we hear all the time is CNC. We need CNC. So we actually just took our IMPT and added a CNC arm, but that will all have to be done at a partnership because MEP doesn't have a machine shop or the equipment. So we will have to partner with that on there. So partnerships definitely expand your opportunities. Having them is a great thing. Definitely being a partner with the Department of Labor has helped us tremendously. They've created their own Office of Apprenticeship. They feed candidates to us all the time for testing. The credentials they all earn, I know we haven't used this word too much, but they're stackable, they're transferable, they're industry valued credentials, and the addition of the college credit has definitely helped them. One of the things in our cohort 1, which just about is ready to graduate, one of the gentlemen, now not all the apprentices will use the college credit, some will, some may do it later on, but one of them that is enrolled at Essex County College and he said to me, he said, all my life, I figured I'd just be a mechanic all my life. Going through the apprenticeship program and getting these college credits and sitting in that classroom and learning I am discovering that I don't have to be a mechanic my whole life. And that tells the whole story to me. This is all about different career pathways. Career pathways is extremely important. So I think, let me see what else I have on these slides here. So I have here, now is the time to act. This is one we show to our grant under the Department of Labor pays for the related technical instruction. So the RTI is paid for by the grant, and the employer has to pay the wages of the apprentice while they're sitting in the RTI. They're getting money while they're working, they're doing all their OJT, and they're getting paid while they're sitting in that classroom. So we're telling all the apprentices, now is the time to act. Get while the getting is good, essentially, is what I say, because June 30th, our grant is out, and we don't know what's coming next. Will there have to be a kick-in? That has yet to be determined. So we are telling everybody, you got to get in. So we have 6 more cohorts that we're in the process of building right now, while the RTI is still covered by the Department of Labor. So it's a pleasure being here today. We also run a PACE grant. PACE is pre-apprenticeship career education. We have those going in our hardest to serve schools, inner city schools that are called, we serve a lot of JAG schools. I don't know if everybody knows what JAG is, Jobs for America's Graduates. And we are doing not nearly what I've learned a lot about pre-apprenticeship here. Ours is essentially a math boot camp supported by manufacturing skills that I'm hoping to test them for our registered apprenticeship program. But I've learned some things here about PACE that would be really beneficial and that will add meat to it. So thank you for listening, and I guess I'm going to pass this on now to John.
I got a quick
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
What are the other 3 apprentices that you have?
We have technical sales, which was a very big technical sales for manufacturing. And then we also we took IMPT and we added an arm for food manufacturing, which has a lot of food in there. And then we just got approved for IMPT/CNC. Oh, I missed one too. We also have, thank you, Sean, logistics. We have a certified logistics technician for the logistics industry.
Question here.
Oh, yes.
Hi, I'm from New Jersey.
Hi.
School. I'm wondering with your pre-apprenticeship program, because I just received an expand grant, and I'm wondering if you run into problems with the hazardous jobs when you have pre-apprentice, the 16 to 18-year-olds, that's where we're running into.
Yeah.
With the companies insured, but our insured.
Yeah, so the question is about age, right? The age requirement. So I will tell you, I know in manufacturing and in my apprenticeship program, it's 18. That is, the age to get them into. And I do think, I don't know if that is a state requirement or an industry requirement. I think it is an industry requirement, and that has become, pardon me? It's both. So, yeah, that is yeah. I don't have an answer to that. I will tell you in our PACE grants, the students that we are training in PACE are 17, will be 18 in the year they graduate from high school, because in our apprenticeship programs, you have to be 18 years old. You have to be you have to have a high school diploma, and of course, you have to be employed and be able to do the job. So I could see where that is. I could see where that problem lies, but we'll talk. Mm-hmm.
Hi, I'm John Gooden. I'm the president of M. Davis. Anybody here in the room from Delaware? Good, I can just make this stuff up. I didn't think there was anybody. But we're a fifth generation privately held company. We're actually celebrating 150 years in business this year. Davis family. I've worked for 3 generations. Thank you. Of the Davis family, and it's a fun place to be. You can see we've got 100 apprentices right now in Delaware, which I think as a single employer makes us the largest in the state. We are mainly in the construction industry, but we have 2 manufacturing facilities, one that does power distribution equipment and one that does modular process skids. Over at the 480 people that are up there, over 400 of those are in the trades. So plumbers, pipe fitters, electricians, millwrights, the full gamut of trades. And that's by design. There are no career helpers. If you come to work at M. Davis on the blue collar side, you're going to learn a trade. And that's one of the Davis family core values. I think it's important to the people, and it's very important to us as a business. Charles Davis, the fourth generation owner, was way ahead of the time. He recognized in the 80s that we needed more people being trained to work in the trades. You just couldn't hire people and OJT them. He started working with the state of Delaware back then, helped develop some of the curriculum and some of the programs, and we've been active with the apprenticeship program since then. By our math, trying to collate records with the state, we figure roughly we've run about 800 people through the apprenticeship program in the last 35 years or so. And since we only have 480 employees, that means they all don't still work here now, which probably goes to the retention question. So how it works in Delaware, it's a little bit different than the surrounding states and in most states in the area. The state runs the program. You know, one of the core things we have to do is to make sure we schedule our people so that their work schedule allows them to get to school at night. The training for the trades occurs in Newcastle County and in two of the local vocational high schools and mirrors the school year. So September to December, January to May, 2 nights a week, either Monday and Wednesday or Tuesday and Thursday. That goes on for 4 years. 4 years is a big commitment, working 40 plus hours a week and going to school at night. It is a commitment. It's not an easy thing to get through. While they're going to school at night, we pair them in-house with somebody in their trade that they're learning and make sure that they have recorded at least 8,000 hours of OJT in that trade, so that ideally when they're finishing up their night school, they're also finishing up their work program and are able to get their journey papers. The wages are set so that when they go into the apprenticeship program, they end up making about half of what a journey person makes. And by the time they graduate, they're making at least 85% of that journey wage. It is an employee market, so those wages are actually higher than where the state sets them. Yes?
Did you say something about high school? So
The training's in the high schools, yes.
Okay.
Physically in the buildings. They have the shops.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, so they're getting that.
Yeah, sometimes it's,
Job learning in the high school.
yes, exactly, at night, not during the day when the students are there.
And what's the youngest age that they start?
They're coming out of high school, so they're 18,
okay.
19 years old. Yeah, so this is at night. During the day, the schools are used for other training. Okay. As they finish up each semester, the wages go up. So it's not start at 50 and then graduate at 85. It tiers up. There's really no cost to the apprentice, and other than, like I said, the time. And they're not paid at night. They are there on their own time. If they have experience, if they came out of those same high schools where they went to that school as an undergraduate, and when they graduated high school, often they can test out of that first year, that core curriculum, and shorten that time period down to 3 years. Really, the only downside, and I think it's why we were fortunate to have gotten into it when we did, is that it's a long term. People want training and instant gratification. They want an employee in 4 months or 6 months or a year. 4 years is a long time to wait. So for us, you know, we've got a steady feeder pattern, but if you're getting into it, that sometimes can be seen as a downside. We do a lot to support the apprenticeship programs. We run a lot of craft training in-house, and that once again cuts both ways. It helps them become more valuable, and also helps them become more productive out in the field. So the wages go up, and also helps us with productivity. Do a lot of simple things like tube bending on instrumentation or conduit bending for electricians, brazing. We also do some complicated stuff around welding. We do a lot of exotic work, Hastelloy, Inconel, materials like that. We'll run those certified programs in-house. We have multiple, I think a dozen or so people that are certified through the ASME to teach those trades, and we also use third-party organizations. We also, a lot of our employees that have gone through and served an apprenticeship and gotten their journey papers now go back into the night school program and teach. I think we got about 15 or so that teach for the state of Delaware, teach the different apprenticeship programs, which is, it's a great way for them to be able to give back and kind of share some of their knowledge. We do a lot of the things I think you would continue to consider pretty standard. donate materials, we provide, subject matter experts. We bring people in to do tours of our facilities when we got something neat going on. And over the last few years, we've recognized that, people are coming into these situations with some of them with some pretty limited means. There's small tools that typically in the industry you expect the tradesperson to buy, things like, wrenches and relatively, but for somebody who doesn't have any money, that's a stretch. So we've put together toolkits now and give those to the apprentices when they come on board. And that way they're not buying junk tools just to have something. They get a good quality set of tools to be able to move forward. And I think the most important thing we do is around the recruiting. We are in the comprehensive schools, we're in the trade schools, we're in the community centers, talking to people about the trades and what it means to become a millwright or a plumber or an electrician. Most people don't know, they don't understand that, and they don't get exposed to it. And often find myself in a high school talking to parents about how a child can be successful without going to college. And I think that's probably the toughest group to sway right now. Success stories, just a couple. We've got a lot of our, 500 or so employees, 170 of them are graduates of the regional VOTEC schools, and I can tell you all of those served apprentices. But here's a couple of examples. Both Vinny and Adam started with us as co-ops, and that goes to your question. They started when they were seniors in high school, so they weren't 18, and we are limited as to what they can do then. But they're 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off. So 2 weeks in the school, 2 weeks with us. We have some job sites and then our shop where we can put them. And then when they graduate high school, they go right into the apprenticeship program, and often with that experience are able to test out. But for us, the apprenticeship program, very important, but it's also just a foundation. A lot of our apprentices move up. They become supervisors, estimators, project coordinators, project estimators, project managers. They move up and really kind of the sky is the limit. As several have said, most people in my industry either have gray hair like mine or no hair, which means they're on their way out. And as president of the company, that's one of the things that wakes me up at night is I feel like I'm going to go to work in the morning. I'm going to be the only guy there. Everybody retired. And so yeah.
A lot of us on our way out.
Yeah. Stick around for a few more years, there is no 2 weeks notice. I say you got to give me 6 months notice before you're leaving so that we can come up with a plan. And the biggest thing that I think we've done, and this has just been the last few years, is we put a lot of effort into recognizing the apprenticeships when they graduate, when they get their journeyman's papers. They physically get them. For me, a couple of times we've actually been able to actually bring the Secretary of Labor in, and she signed them in our shop, and we had ABC News there one time. And then the schools, when the kids are graduating now from the local vocational schools at the high school level, if they pledge that they're going into the apprenticeship program, the last 2 years, those schools have had a signing day for those kids. And then the employers have come in who they're going to work for. And it is so great to see the smiles and see them recognizing that they're doing something that, people, aren't judging them for it. It's been very positive. And I think that's it for me. Yep.
Question?
Yes, sir.
2 things.
Can you speak into the microphone so it can pick it up?
All right, we'll do that. 2 things. Now, do you hire engineers? Do you have engineers at work?
Yeah, we've
Do
got
you-
about the 30 or so engineers.
Okay, so do you have them work in reverse, where you tell them, by the way, don't get comfortable with the desk?
Yeah,
You're
all
gonna-
the engineers that start with us spend time out in the field or on the shop floor, learning what the trades do. Yeah,
All right.
absolutely.
I think that's a tenet, and we've discussed this amongst ourselves, that's a tenet that we want our engineers to do. And then second, are you doing any retiree retention program?
Trying to convince people to stick around a little bit longer.
Right, and what style of things?
Sure. Yeah. Actually, with us, as people have progressed, and it's been an interesting conversation because you have people that are more senior now, and they want to stick around, but they get some pride and some ego that gets in there. You may be their mid-60s and they don't want to be 6 floors up in an industrial facility. So transitioning them over into more mentoring roles where maybe they're doing craft training or quality. We've done a lot of that, and it's helped us retain a lot of our institutional knowledge. We have several, in our business, we have a lot of people who hold master's licenses, plumbers and electricians and things like that. It's a great way for people as they get senior to get some more education and shift towards just becoming a license holder or something like that. So very important.
I have a question. Do you do aptitude testing
Coming in
for
from an
screening for
interview?
people coming in before you let them in the apprenticeships?
It's tough. We do limited, and the thing that hits us, it bothers me to say because I've been saying it a long time, is math. And I'm not talking calculus and differential equation. I'm talking about fractions. We still have a lot, and a tape measure is very important to us. It can't be 5 of the big lines and 4 of the little lines.
Exactly.
It really can't.
Yeah, but that's what they say.
Oh, absolutely.
I know that, yeah.
We have a 2-week program in-house that we run ourselves. Actually, I've got a retired gentleman who runs it for us. And it's a shame because they may have gotten the higher levels, but they missed math for a long time in Delaware. It wasn't on the state test. I don't know if it is now. So, or, I'm sorry, not math, fractions. Yeah, and so you could graduate without really understanding the concept of how you add fractions and stuff. Yes.
That's actually in the high school level, something we're introducing next year is a math for careers. Because they're in New Jersey, you're required 3 years of math. And that third year was typically pre-calc or algebra 2. And it went to imaginary numbers, things they don't need. So from a career perspective, we're bringing in rulers, micrometers, all those equipment to teach them the fractions.
It's important.
So I think, and I don't think many high schools are doing that, but that's the kind of feedback that the high schools need, is what do we need to teach at that level so they can use a tape measure, because they're not teaching that.
No, I definitely can. I would tell you to measure in New Jersey, measurement is high priority. And exactly the little lines to the big lines, they can't do that. So one time I was in about 2 weeks ago, I was in this big manufacturer, and he took a yardstick off the top of his door, and he said, if they could only measure. And I thought, oh my gosh, so measurement is a big piece of this. I would tell you decimals to fractions to decimals is really hot. They just can't seem to get that concept. And I don't know why percentages are so hard, but they are. Percentages seem really hard. And I'll be honest with you, we've given out our assessment test. We only have I am almost embarrassed to say this, but I'm going to tell you this. Our pass rate is only 30%. So that is embarrassing to me. So the people that take our test are recent high school graduates, recent CTE graduates, people who are dislocated, people who are career changers, and it's only a 30% pass rate. Scary.
It's,
Another question. Do you have a special interview process besides an aptitude process where you look at the whole person?
Our craft superintendents for the different trades do the interviewing. So if they're interviewing somebody who's just graduating from high school, they're looking for something very different than somebody who's worked in the trade for 10 years but hasn't gone through an apprenticeship program. Some of it's written, a lot of it is conversation just based on experience. And they're the people that I'll sit down to when we're making hiring decisions, and also. I heard some people during the apprenticeship panel. There's a lot of life situations that are going on. Trying to figure out where they are and what something as simple as transportation, driver's licenses. What we can do to get people. Some of our facilities aren't on bus routes. There's some challenges there getting people in the door.
I just want to add one little piece to that. We have also, upon occasion, we have someone that went during their interview, because we give them a brief interview. We really like them, and they came close to passing. We said, geez, this guy's got a great resume. He has experience in that. He just couldn't get through the reading comprehension test. We will prep them and say, we'll give you a second chance at this reading comprehension test, just because we like some of the other things he brings to the table, and we think the manufacturers would like them.
In a precision environment, we want to understand their personality and how they work. So if we're asking you to hold 4 decimal places, we need to understand how you are as a person and how in your regular life you're precise, organized, all those things. And in our interview process, we try to go a little bit deeper to get to these things.
Do any of you use the work keys testing?
We use work keys for reading comprehension, 9th grade.
And one component of the Midas grant, which is Modular Industry-Driven Apprenticeship Strategies.
I'm talking to Chris
you.
next week. I'll tell him you got it.
One part that I did not go into in detail, the United States Department of Labor, when they put out the grant funding, we are not able to work with high school students for pre-apprenticeship programs, but we are working with out-of-school youth, and that population goes through the work keys assessments before they would come into the program. So I have a question for the panel. One thing that I know, if somebody were to ask me this question, I'll answer it first, but what do you wish that you would have known going into the start of developing an apprenticeship program? And from my perspective, I mentioned this a bit during my part of the discussion, it takes a really long time. There's an extended period of time to get an employer to commit and then start an apprenticeship program. So I struggle with knowing how somebody that did not have the experience that Pennsylvania College of Technology or many of the people here in this room, the cycle time from those initial conversations to when the first apprentice actually starts a program sometimes is more than a year in length. And the grant funding that comes out from the federal government often does not support that timeline of development, especially when these programs are 3 and 4 years in length. You really don't get the results before the funding runs out and you're operating the next particular group of individuals or funding opportunities that are coming out. So that is something that I certainly did not expect going into this. You often are working with companies who are moving at lightning speed and you think that this is going to happen at lightning speed as well, and it doesn't. So I'd be interested to hear from the other panelists what their experience is with that or what they wish they had known.
The one thing, I would agree with you on that, the amount of time it takes and is long. And another thing that surprised me in the beginning, and then I just now do it automatically, is the learning curve for employers to understand the apprenticeship model. So I start with, in fact, I see Stuart Bass in the back of the room. He invited me last year. I'm giving you a shout out because he invited me last year to the Pennsylvania Apprenticeship Conference. And I happened to sit with him and his folks, and he gave me tremendous training material that I customized for MEP that we still use today. And those documents going through the 5 parts of an apprenticeship program, I start them at the bottom because the pendulum for apprenticeship seemed to stop. And, it's getting that momentum back again. So the learning curve on the employer side really was kind of surprising to me. No mind the education side, but I thought the employer side, that was a shock.
I think in our case, it was the learning curve, excuse me, all the way around. I was fortunate that we had employers that were at the table that were incredibly engaged and motivated, but really didn't know how to start, right? I'm facilitating a meeting. They're telling me what they need, not quite sure how to get what they need, and I had no idea at all. So it was learning that technical piece of it was huge. And again, I'm not someone that I don't come from a manufacturing environment. So I don't, half of this equipment that we're talking about, I've never seen before, okay? So that aspect of it was really, really big. Now, they were incredibly patient. It would have been nice if somebody would have been able to hand me a manual and say, this is maybe not exactly what you need, but it's a blueprint for getting started. And we didn't have that. We had pieces of that came through the Office of Apprenticeship. Here are the standards, but then how does it all fit together and work? That was a challenge, still is. We're still very much a work in progress, and we will be for a long time. But I think it was that again, initial learning curve, not knowing where to start. And quite frankly, I think a lot of chambers and other community-based organizations could be pretty effective at facilitating these programs and conversations, but they're confronted with the same thing. Where do I start? How do I get started? And that is a very time-consuming process. So that, I think, was the biggest thing for me in terms of getting started out of the chute, and still is. We're still working on it.
Quick comment.
You know, for us, I think about it, it's been an uphill battle, and it's not with the starting of the program, it's with the marketing of our industry, manufacturing and construction. If you think back to the 80s when jobs were leaving and into the 90s, you know, but you looked at our industry and said, you're going to get laid off, doesn't pay well, it's dangerous. You had all those expectations, and then this mantra came out from parents and politicians and teachers that everybody's got to go to college. You know, there is no future in the trades. Really, I think we should have, as an industry, hired some marketing people in the late 80s and early 90s, and life would have gotten a lot easier. Because that's those conversations. Most politicians now say career or college. Most of them say that. I think some of them even believe it. You know, some teachers, depending on the schools you're in, are willing, but I still face a lot of resistance in some of the comprehensive schools. And then parents, you know, and you heard one of the apprentices say it was up here. His mom said he was going to college no matter what. You know, parents really they don't know about our industry, and they have a negative stereotype associated with it, and it's really hard to overcome. I think those are the things that I wish I'd started working on a long time ago.
Yes.
Yeah, to put an exclamation point on what you just said, John, I'm in the advanced manufacturing industry myself, second generation. Just joined my company with another, so now we're 80 employees. So we're not like a giant company or anything. But so I've been married to my wife for 27 years. So I've been 27 years into her family. Her sister-in-law has a 16-year-old. My nephew's 16 years old, and it should go to college. He's dead on into robotics and engineering and should go there. But what she is preaching to him is that if he does not go to college, he will end up on the line in Amazon's distribution center. And I'm like, you didn't just say that to me, did you? That's the stigma that we're fighting. This is someone that I have had that impact, you know, because I'm very active in the manufacturing community. So it is an uphill battle that we're fighting, and that's kind of tying to a question here is that because we are fighting that uphill battle, and because the deluge that was the inflow of workers into our industry, let's say 30 years ago or 40 years ago, is now a trickle of people. And we do need really good people. I mean, I think I could teach high school trig because I have to teach trig to all of our incoming. That you need people that can comprehend, they have to be bright, smart, motivated to make advanced manufacturing, but there aren't that many. If you're running, Patricia, especially you, for the MEP, how are you driving people toward the program? Are you working with, you know, not just schools, but finally, like people that are retail that want to have a career, you know?
Yeah, I'll tell you, it is an uphill battle. And, you know, I'm going to tell the story. I'm going to tell you the story of my father. My father's an Irish immigrant, and he landed in Boston, very young age. I tell this story all the time. And when he was in 8th grade, because he was good at math, Westinghouse took him out of school and trained him in the tool and die trade. So, of course, that young man sitting right there really was like, you know, he was learning. So my father learned tool and die, and he went to Boston Tech for his RTI, for his related technical instruction. And then when he was 21, Westinghouse said, okay, John, we're now going to send you to college. So he went to Boston College. They honored his OJT and his RTI. He had to go to BC for 1 year, and he got a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering. Now, he has no high school diploma, but he's got a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering. We need these pathways. We need stories like that to go out so that people see, hey, and no, he certainly doesn't have any student loan debt, right? He didn't have any of that. So So we need these pathways and to go to college, for them to recognize that there is learning that can be recognized outside of those walls of college. So what I do, I talk to CTE schools, I talk to adult schools, I talk to people who have gone through really rough times in their life. We're in all the JAG schools in New Jersey trying to, teach them different pathways. But it's tough. I want to say one student at a time. We, in our apprenticeship program, in my group 1, we did the signing event that somebody talked about. You talked about it. And we asked an apprentice from the group to stand up and talk about the apprenticeship program. We had no idea. So this young man gets up and he told him, this gentleman spent 3 years in prison. We had no idea of that. And talked about how much the program has meant to him. He's gone on and he's just about ready to graduate, and he's now a supervisor. And he talked about how that training and development, he's also one of the ones that's taking advantage of the 8 college credits he's getting. So I don't, other than just keep spreading the word, but I think to your point, changing the perception of parents, huge undertaking, huge. Because, you're going to college is out there.
I think too, just to piggyback on that as well, I think, there's the peer testimonials carries a lot of leverage. And we can talk about all of this stuff to as many students or parents as we want. But when you have students, in our case, graduating from high school with a stackable, transferable credential that, and they're entering the workforce making more money than perhaps what their siblings did who graduated from a 4-year college, making more money with no debt. That's a pretty telling and compelling story amongst your peer group. So I do think that over time, not to say we still aren't going to be producing the brochures and the flyers and going to all the school meetings, but I do think over time, those types of stories that John even shared with us are going to really swing the pendulum in terms of awareness and buy-in. So,
Bob had a question.
Yeah, I'd like to just make a couple comments. I agree entirely with what Gary said.
Thank you.
Excuse me. I agree with what Gary said. And I think the tricky part is a chicken-egg problem. We need enough good offers so that, we can advertise as much as we want. But if counselors steer everybody to apprenticeship, you'll get a long waiting list unless you have enough employer offers. And just one comment about selling and organizing, which Shannon, I think it was illustrative what you said, and what you've said also, Patricia, that's such a critical component. I was once talking to someone in Switzerland, where I mentioned they have the highest share of people in apprenticeships. And I said, well, everybody in Switzerland knows apprenticeships, so persuading companies must be a trivial problem for you. And he said, well, actually, it's a minority of companies that account for the apprenticeships, number one. And number two, companies go out of business. And then other companies start. And new companies that start still need a lot of persuasive power to show them how apprenticeship can work for them. So if that's the case in Switzerland, what must be the case here? And that is why I keep harping on, and I think one of the things that DOL should do, or any other agency should do, is have a program that really trains people to be great salespeople for apprenticeship. Have them, maybe even just instead of training the people now in business, hire a bunch of really good salesmen and then teach them about apprenticeship. Because really that is, in getting to scale, that's the kind of effort that we're going to need. And as Gary mentioned, as you reach that scale, you might have trouble persuading the first cohort of young people. But once you get through that first cohort, they're going to tell their brothers and sisters. One final point, which I think is part of our problem in the manufacturing and construction sectors especially, people are unaware of the complexity of what it takes to do a really good job, either as an electrician or in tool and die or a whole range of things. They think, well, you're a machine operator, or you're, that it's simple, or that it's, you've done this before, and it's all repetitive stuff. And I think it's that people are not exposed to this. When in the old days, when people worked in the shop for a while, maybe before they went to college, but maybe they realized it. But today's elite people, they don't understand the complexities of this kind of work, and that then sort of demeans it in that way, that it's just sort of, oh, that's a simple, in the quote trades. I think that has to be communicated better.
I will say, when we've done tours,
Can you take that mic? Thank you.
when we've done tours of our facilities in California and Florida and Pennsylvania to teachers and students, they are just like wowed, like, oh my gosh, I drive past this building every day. I never knew all these robots and all this stuff was in here. I had no idea how high tech it is behind these four walls. They just had no idea.
So we are at time right now. I think we're going to take a quick break and then come back into this room for some closing remarks. I just want to take a moment to thank the panel, and hopefully those folks will stay afterwards. I know there's still some questions. Certainly engage them afterwards or while we're on the break. Thank you very much.